Kia ora. Welcome to Conversations with Wahine, brought to you by the Wellington branch of the National Council of Women, New Zealand.
Hello everyone and welcome to Conversations with Wahine. I'm Laura and I'm joined tonight with Harita. Hi Harita, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And today here with us we have Maria Carroll, aka Miss Crude Tattoo. She's a Wellingtonian born and bred, queer and neurospicy with a red dose of ADHD to fuel her passions. Maria has been tattooing for the past 8 years and she's the co-owner of the tattoo studio Enchanted Realm in Brooklyn, here in Wellington. Hi Maria, how are you?
Kia ora, I'm real good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you here with us.
Thanks.
A first question, which is more a curiosity of mine, is why did you choose the brand name Miss Crude Tattoo?
Like the simplest answer is it's my initials. So it made signatures easier. Like I didn't have to come up with anything too crazy. But initially what started it was during my tattoo apprenticeship, there was kind of like a weird creepy guy that got tattooed by my mentor.
Okay.
And he heard the guys saying, "Oh, Maria, can you grab me this?" And so he went on their social medias, found me through their social media, and then started like sending me messages. So I was like, okay, cool, I want some sort of at least slight barrier, you know, and then it's kind of nice having that kind of turn on, turn off. Like Miss Crude is me, but it also is kind of slightly more probably performative.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I also love the juxtaposition between, you know, a miss kind of comes across as potentially a lot more feminine, whereas crude is kind of almost the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I love that idea that, you know, as a female tattooer in the industry, I can be, you know, bold and heavy and hard and beat the boys at what they do, but then I can also be there for my like fellow wahine who want to get something that really means the world to them, that is actually really light and delicate and has that sort of feeling attached to it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think because you have 2 pages on Instagram, right?
Yes.
One is Miss Crude and one is Miss Fine
and Light. Yeah.
So I guess this is also representing of what you just said, right?
Yeah. When I remember to post on there, But because like I tattoo quite a lot of my friends' mums.
Oh, really?
And I love that. And I don't want them to look at my social media page and think that I can't help them out with what they're wanting to get tattooed. I want them to be filled with confidence that I can totally do the job that they're really after. So it's nice being able to have this little page to be like, oh, it's okay, like, you don't have to look like me, I promise.
Well, about that guy that was messaging you, did things ever get bad?
No, not really, not with that one anyhow. I mean, there's like all sorts of really strange, weird stories that go through tattoo shops. We just kind of attract a particular type of people sometimes.
Oh, I know, what a weirdo.
Yeah. Such a creepy situation.
Yeah. That's the thing, with social media, you can just find anyone just like that as soon as you know their name.
Yeah. I mean, it still isn't too hard to find me, but at least it did put it forward in my head to kind of put potential more protections in place around my privacy online.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you've been tattooing for about 8 years. What made you want to become a tattoo artist in the first place?
So I suppose I know innately there was something in me that wanted to mark people's bodies. So, because no one in my family had tattoos. So I'm kind of the black sheep. And my siblings are a lot older than me, so I was that weird, way younger kid that just had to kind of keep themselves busy. So I had a lot of like soft toys, like teddy bears, and there was especially one particular day where I imagined that I was like a pop star, and like, you know, I did a little thing for the bears, and then they not only wanted my autograph, but they wanted my art on them. And so I got a bunch of different things and just kind of like put my art on their bodies. But then that's when my mum, when she came home, she saw them and said that I disrespected my toys. And so we had to drive that off to the Salvation Army and dump them.
Oh, really? That's sad.
Yeah. But there was definitely, like, I was always drawing all over my own body. There's so many different pictures of, like, any time we're in some sort of place where I can have access to those sort of paints or something, where there's photos of me and I've painted my friends. So there is innately that weird thing where I'm like, I need to put something on people. And that's like, seems to be my favourite canvas to play on.
So that's something that came from inside you. It's not something that you saw somewhere else.
Yeah, because that's what I find interesting is, I didn't have that culture of tattooing innately around me. There's like other little shoot-offs that do sometimes create pipelines to tattooing, but I never really saw a lot of tattoos growing up. But I just felt this need to do that.
Leave a mark. So it's kind of something that you've always had in you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But because you started tattooing 8 years ago. So of course there was a time in between when you started thinking about it and when you then actually did it. What made you start at that point? What changed and made you decide, okay, now I'm going to do it?
Yeah, so I was definitely really like obsessed with tattoos. I got my first one at 17. But it wasn't until I was 21, 22 and I was studying at Massey University. So I was studying design degree, and I was that kid in class who was just super obsessed with tattoos. The friends that I wanted to make at uni were the other kids with tattoos. I would always draw up all my friends' ones, and I just kind of got to a point where I was halfway through my degree, and I was like, I've got 2 more years to go, but I can tell where my passion really lies. And so I told myself I could have a gap year, and if I found a tattoo apprenticeship within that year, then that's my journey. Yeah. But if I don't, I have to go back and finish my degree. I'm one of the lucky ones, so being able to find an apprenticeship within a year is kind of insane. It wasn't the greatest apprenticeship, but it was my foot in the door.
Yeah, of course. And how do you do that? How do you look for an apprenticeship?
It's a really good question considering how popular tattooing and people are trying to find apprenticeships is at the moment. It is a really icky, sticky, hard one because in any area there's not usually very many spaces available because step one, the tattooer needs to be at a place where they have the capacity to have like a tattoo child. And that's a lot of work, and that's literally putting 40 hours a week into this being that you're not making any money off. I mean, if you own the shop, you will eventually make money off them, but if you're just a worker for the shop, you're literally just helping this being out of the good of your heart. So you need to find someone who's willing to do that. Because someone's willing to offer you time, they love seeing time put in back. So making physical portfolios make a huge difference. At the moment at shops, we're seeing a lot of people coming in and giving us literally just their Instagram handles. And that doesn't really show a lot of like actual love and dedication to the craft. But the moment we see someone give us a physical book, we get so excited. And that's when we're like, yo, I've got 5 minutes or I've got 15 minutes before my next client. I'll actually come and sit down with you and we can have a yarn. I can tell you where your art direction looks like it's going in, and I can give you some tips and tricks. I might not have the capacity for you right now for an apprentice, but I can totally direct you to the types of tattooers that I think might help you for your journey.
And with being an apprentice, like obviously a lot of apprentices make mistakes as they learn. What do you do if you make a mistake while you're doing a tattoo, because you can't just
undo it.
Well, I think the biggest lesson in tattooing is how to fix mistakes. I think a lot more mistakes go down than people know. But
confident.
No, but you do. You have to learn how to just fix things up. And kind of, there's two situations. There's one where someone jolts, you know, they sneeze, they cough,
They move.
yeah, and there is an obvious something that went wrong and we just didn't pull up fast enough. In those situations, most decent tattoo artists will actually bring it up out loud and say, hey, this has happened, you might have felt it, do you want to have a look at it? This is what I think I can do with it.
Yeah.
Then the other one is, who knows what, there could have literally been a problem with the needle, you know, that the tattooer was using, or some little tiny weird thing could have happened where there's a lot of Vaseline going on, you could do a little tiny slip and something kind of goes in the slightly wrong place, but innately we're creative beings, so we come up with really creative solutions.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why we like tattooing, because it is so, what's the word I want to use? High risk.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of areas where we can fuck up. So many. And I think at least a lot of tattooers are probably quite used to fucking up in life in general, but learning to just like work out a creative way to fix it.
Yeah.
And so that's just what we do in the job every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess on one side this also shows how good someone is, because you have to be creative to
Yes.
fix something like that.
Yeah, and you can't let it show as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's innately performative as well, because you can't let the amount of times I've talked to other tattooers, we're saying so much self-hatred in our heads when we're tattooing. We're like, oh, this sucks. And then honestly, I've had periods where I've seen a tattoo a year later on my phone, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. But I remember crying outside the shop after they left because I honestly didn't think it was good enough.
Yeah, just like a typical artist.
100%. Yeah, all self-hating. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you've got a couple of different tattoo styles and that
Yes.
you do fine lines and, you know, the more dainty looks as well. What's your favourite tattoo style to do, and what do you like to work with the most?
I personally do really love American traditional, and I like playing with that, especially as it is a more male-dominated area within tattooing. There's heaps of awesome women that are doing a lot of different like fine line techniques, and I can do a decent portion of that, but I will happily like offer people onto them if I think they can do something better so that they get that money. But if someone wants American traditional, I want to take that money off the man. I want to be here to be like, no, you can get that panther from a woman who knows how to like talk to you about your feelings if you really need it. I also really enjoy large scale black work. And again, that's just another industry, like area within the industry that again is a lot more male dominated. And there's kind of those like rougher, tougher folk. I'm really into just, competing with those guys to show them that a woman can do what they do, if not better.
So what is black work?
Black work is when you are using pretty much 100% black pigment, but you're using quite a large area of the body. So you might actually be creating all these big, large cutouts to create beautiful shapes in the body. I've been doing mostly pieces that might incorporate large floral patterns. So there might be, let's say, a chrysanthemum on the shoulder and on the elbow and then maybe on the wrist, and then everything else behind it is all pure black. But the cool thing, I think, that is why it looks really beautiful on women and why a lot of women like it is, what is black? Black's quite slimming. So you can create really gorgeous forms in the body with it, but it's also really quite brutal. So I think that's why I like the beauty of that.
And what is the most extravagant request that you have had for a tattoo?
A 3-way on a rainbow.
Oh.
So it was, I don't know how explicit I'm allowed to be, but it was, I guess, a guy fucking a woman from behind, and then he wanted to be fucked by, like, a woman with either a dick or a strap on behind him, and she's spitting on it as it goes inside. Yeah, whilst they're on a rainbow.
Was
colour.
this tattoo on the guy's back?
It was his upper thigh,
Okay.
so that he could like hide it if he went to the pools with the kids.
Oh my god, he has kids. Why? Why does he want this? I thought he might be single.
It's just a dad with a spicy life.
Yeah.
Does his wife know?
Everyone's above board. Everyone's included.
And then you did it?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great fun.
Each to their own.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, very
It's an
unique
easy one to
tattoo.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, you never forget it. So that takes me on to my next question. Are there any tattoos that you've refused to do?
I 100% won't tattoo anything gang affiliated, or anything that involves any form of like hate speech or symbolism, which is actually quite a common conversation we have in our shop, especially with like traveling guest artists. What are the symbols that are coming up at the moment? Because those sort of racist and hateful symbols are actually ever changing. Because for them to stay in the shadows, they have to change their shapes so that they can like walk around and people don't know. So we do try to stay as up to date as we can just by talking with our communities about what are those like yucky signs. So we definitely won't touch those. Otherwise, in terms of like really quite like crude and crazy things, I'll usually probably say yes. Like I've tattooed like genitalia. I've tattooed faces, inner lips, all sorts of weird places. That for me excites me because it's something a bit different. So that really sparks my ADHD because we've got a different difficulty level going on here. But yeah, if it happens to do with anything towards hate or gang stuff, it's a hard no.
I saw a movie recently. I can't remember what it's called. But two girls got the inside of was it Euphoria? I can't remember what it was. And two girls got the inside of their lip tattooed. Yeah, inside there. I think it was an episode of Euphoria, and it was like best friend something.
Cute.
And I was like, oh wow, I've never seen that before. And it was so obviously it was just something that the two of them knew about. Because, you know, the public can't see
I
it.
love little sneaky tattoos. I actually really love doing inner lip tattoos because I find them super challenging. They're really quite quick. Because you can't spend long in that region. So it's just a fun, exciting, quick little mission that can be your like little secret.
Must be painful though.
Well, I actually only got mine done yesterday.
Oh really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
I did shed a couple of tears. It felt almost more like getting a piercing than a tattoo.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then it's surprising how much I can't actually feel it now.
Oh, really?
Like I can feel that it's raised, but there's no pain associated. Yeah.
And I remember you told me, because we met each other back in March, and I remember that you told me that you actually don't really like to get tattooed.
Yeah, it hurts so bad.
But you have so many.
Yeah, they look cool, but they hurt. Like you're honestly trying to work out.
I can't tell that you don't.
Maybe I'm telling a secret.
It's okay. No, tattoos totally hurt. It's so valid that it hurts. I try to work out before every tattoo how I can make it less painful for myself. If I can book it later in the afternoon and I know them, am I allowed to have a couple of drinks before? All sorts of different little tips and tricks. I've tried like numbing creams and all sorts. It all sucks.
Was it this one in the inner lip the most painful that you've had?
That was probably one of my easiest.
Really?
Yeah. Getting my back piece done was high up there in the pain, just because that's there's well over 20 hours in that.
Wow.
And so there were sessions where we'd be going for up to 8 hours. Yeah. My worst one was my shortest one, because fun fact, our pain tolerance goes in cycle with our periods.
Oh, okay.
So depending on where we are in our cycle is how we experience our pain. So I was on my period on one of those back sessions, and I couldn't even make 4 hours, and I was crying every hour on that hour. It felt like it went beyond pain and it went to like an emotional dark place within me. You know, like if you go to a really like intense gym class and you're like, I hate this and I want to crawl into a bowl. Yeah, it was that kind of vibe, but in my back.
No idea.
But it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
That it goes with your cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
right?
whole body's
Yeah.
sensitive, so,
Ovulation time is the best time to get tattooed.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, fun
That's a
fact.
good tip.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good tip.
Yeah. I have a couple of tattoos, but I got them a few years ago now, so I can't remember if I was on my period when I got them or not.
But it's amazing that you can't remember the pain, right?
Mm.
Fully.
Yeah.
Like, unless you can tell a story with it and relate it to something else, it's so hard to really remember the pain, which is why we keep going back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an addiction, right?
Yeah.
Everyone says once you get one, you'll want more.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, I only have 3, and then I haven't got any for like 5 years. But I've thought about it,
Hey.
and I've been trying to convince my husband, but he's too scared.
Yes.
He doesn't have any.
Oh, cute. You just throw them in the deep end.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, I not only want another one, I want more, but every time I want a bigger one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like
right?
from a very small one, then a bigger and bigger, and then maybe at some point, I don't know, I will have all my back tattoos
Right?
as well. Why not?
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's the fun, like, exciting journey of getting tattoos.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to look like at the end.
Yeah, that's so cool. At the beginning of July, you took part in the Wellington Tattoo Convention, and I was wondering what are the pros and cons of such a big event. Maybe also referring to what you said at the beginning about the creepy people that sometimes you can attract in this kind of job.
Yeah, so Wellington Tattoo Convention, it was an interesting one this year because when it first started, it started on a strong value system of trying to make it a 50-50 split between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
It's also actually a smaller convention in relation to other ones throughout the country.
Okay.
So there's just under 100 artists, whereas somewhere like New Plymouth, which holds the New Zealand Festival, that one I think is around like the 300 to 350
Wow.
in terms of how many artists they have. So 100 is not too bad in terms of size. However, this year it definitely felt a lot more like, and I'm a girl who grew up with heaps of boys, but this one definitely felt a lot more kind of masculine kind of energies, and there was like a separate room that was set up this year with I think roughly 12 booths, and there was only one female tattooer in that space, which to me doesn't create a feeling of safety, especially because I've experienced my body being heavily disrespected by a male tattooer from a tattoo convention before. So I'm always quite like eyes on in terms of where places could have far more likely chances of unsafe things happening. And so I felt so bad for that tattooer, the one woman that was working in there, because you also know as a female tattooer, you have mostly female clients.
Yeah.
And how many clients would want to actually go in and walk into that space and be like surrounded by a bunch of men who are super gangster and being like, you know, all tough. And I know a couple of them and they are lovely, but they don't always like look that way at first glance.
Yeah.
And so she ended up actually packing up her stuff on the Sunday and just being like, I can't be bothered. And so it sucks that those sort of things still happen, even though things have come a long way. There is still definitely is yucko guys out there. I will actually like out a guy quietly, but not quietly. The guy that won Best of Sunday actually touched me unconsensually at the after party, and when I told him he couldn't touch me unconsensually, as he walked away, he said, "It's all good. I'm a tattooer."
So,
right?
Yeah.
I would never.
He's probably just used to getting away with that.
That, especially because we are in a position of power, and like our job is physically touching people. But there is definitely still some real yuck guys out there, and it sucks that some of them are still allowed at conventions when they really shouldn't be.
Yeah, of course, because you also have you are in touch with more people at a convention.
Yeah.
Because it's a bigger event compared to just a tattoo studio.
Yes, totally.
So you should not be allowed if you're such a type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah, there's definitely been years where there were safer individuals. This just happened to be a year that a few of us definitely noticed that there were some like not as nice individuals this year. So hopefully we'll see a change with the convention next year, hopefully.
Hopefully the organisers take feedback into consideration and make it more 50-50 like you were saying.
Yeah, because it definitely feels different, and hearing even the tattooers at the after party talk about what the vibes are at the Wellington Convention, and they love how it's not cliquey, and everyone's really friendly and really inclusive, and you can have artists from so many different genres all actually hang out and not hate on each other. So, and I think that's what's so awesome about the Wellington Convention, because Wellington is such an inclusive city, that the tattoo convention also shows that. But I think this year, like, it wasn't an A++, you know, that we can definitely see where it was lacking in those sort of spaces.
Yeah. So was it just a case of not many women wanting to take part this year, or was it the organisers choosing who got stalls and who didn't?
I mean, I definitely heard of the odd female tattooer that didn't get accepted, who had tattooed there previously.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, interesting.
Maybe the organisers have changed or something. Yeah, that's not very good.
I feel like I have to be careful about like certain things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But hopefully more women take interest, right? And then,
yes, for sure.
And then hopefully the organisers actually keep it 50-50 and, you know, get more women on board.
Yeah, it really does feel so much safer and like more wholesome in those sort of spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I know quite a few of my friends have got tattoos, and they've all said exactly what you said before, that they rather go to a female tattoo artist rather than a male, especially, you know, depending where on your body you're getting tattooed. But there's a lot of places that you only feel safe with a woman doing. And also, like, if you're in a tattoo parlour where there might only be one female tattoo artist and all the other tattoo artists in that parlour are men, sometimes she doesn't even feel safe there, because a lot of tattoo parlours are quite open plan as well. You can all kind of see
and like the open
other.
plan is also designed to help in certain terms of safety, because at some areas there were big booths and that could make things even But for sure, because it's more open, then you suddenly have like
Everyone
6
can see
eyes
everything.
on you instead of just the tattooer's eyes on you. For sure, it's definitely a complex issue, and like it's definitely not like all of the male tattooers out there, but it definitely.
Yeah, you need to feel safe when you're doing it.
Completely.
Yeah. So about a year ago, you opened, together with 3 other artists, a tattoo studio in Brooklyn. What was the biggest challenge of this adventure, and what is the most rewarding part of having your own studio?
I'd say the most challenging part was maybe that we only gave ourselves 4 weeks to set it all up whilst working full time. So that was chaos.
Yeah.
And then just going straight into being full time open. Our books were happy and healthy at the time, so we were going into, you know, we're pretty like solidly booked, but we've got interest from the new community that we have, and just trying to juggle it all. Whilst also like looking at the walls and being like, oh, there could still be more art on the walls. But now that we're just over a year in, I kind of finally feel at home there. It takes me a little while to make a place feel fully like a home, but it definitely does now, because we've got a lot more stuff going on the walls, including like a fun like a television, so that we just play really stupid shows just on silent with subtitles whilst we've got our music playing. We've got like a fun stencil wall as well that we get our guest artists to like put some of their stencils on. So being able to look at a wall that has art from so many different people that they've put on people's bodies, I think like fills my heart with joy, because I'm like, cool, like that. I'm really into community is probably one of my biggest passions, and so I think seeing a community form in this little space that we have is what's really special to me, and that's what's really rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think it does take some time to make a place home, even if it's your own.
Yeah,
no, definitely. And is there in New Zealand, in Wellington, or I don't know, over the world, a big female tattoo artist scene? How big is the female tattoo artist at the moment?
You mean in terms of like how many? Hard to say. It's definitely growing. I know the industry apparently is growing. Actually, I'm not going to spout numbers. I don't fully know. I'd say, so when I first started 8 years ago, I think there was somewhere between, just in Wellington alone, somewhere between maybe 5 absolute tops, but I doubt it, 10 women tattooers. So that would have been in 2015.
Yeah.
That was also the year that Steph, who I work with, joined in. She joined into the industry like a couple of months before me. Now we probably have maybe 40 or so female tattooers in Wellington, if not potentially 50. So
That's good.
that sort of growth from the 5 to 10 to 50 to 60 in kind of that 8-year period, I think is a pretty awesome giant jump.
Definitely.
Yeah,
that's great.
And when you opened your tattoo parlour, how did you decide who you went into business with?
we were definitely all friends already.
Mm.
Most of us had all worked together in some capacity as well. The only person I hadn't worked with was George, but I had tattooed him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had already, we knew each other really well. Also, our clients, we have similar clients, which I think helps as well. So often when you're tattooing people, you'll ask who did those pieces on you, and you'll notice as an artist you often hear some of the same names because your stuff looks good beside somebody else's and it complements one another. And so we're quite common fits on people, so that also makes things easier. So we could literally have a client jump from one to the next in a day if need be. We all have somewhat similar aesthetics. We all are kind of different. Even though I'm in black today, I'm the most colourful one because I'm the only one who really tattoos colour. But yeah, all really similar morals, politics, belief systems, because that sort of thing's really important to us as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? When you go into business with friends or family, you have to be really careful who you do it with because it can either go really well or it could go really bad.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Back in the 2000s, there were shows like Miami Ink. and LA Ink., and they really brought out tattoos into the mainstream and showcased the artistry that was involved. Do you think that these type of shows accurately portray what being a tattoo artist is like?
What a good question. Yes and no. I'd say mostly, but it's kind of on a coloured lens that's filtered to be a little bit more extravagant. I think to a core, I think most tattoo artists are probably a bit of drama llamas. I think if you talk to many of us about our past, we probably all have done some pretty crazy things, and that's pretty much on par to those shows. They obviously just put it on a bit extra for the cameras. It's funny, those shows promoted that idea about talking about your story, and that was something that a lot of the older tattooers always talked to us about as we came up, about how they never really, until those shows, had people come in and be like, I need to tell you about my story, and get really upset if the tattooer doesn't ask why they're getting their tattoo. So that was a really interesting turn that those had. I'd say it's an extra form of tattooing for sure.
Yeah, I guess sometimes for some people getting tattooed is kind of a therapy session.
Oh my god, so much so. Yeah. The moment they lie down, they're like, so this is my trauma with my mum, and this is how I'm feeling about my dad, and my sister's up to this, and my boyfriend's on crack, and you're like, oh my god. Entertaining though, for a dumb moment.
A bit of a soap opera almost.
Yeah.
And what piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to start this journey to become a tattoo artist?
The note I put down was get an accountant. I think any creatives out there that want to get into tattooing, big broadcast, understand accounting in some respect and taxes. Please pay your taxes. It sucks paying them back later. Otherwise, investigate the craft. I think if you want someone to teach you, show them why they want to teach you. Show them how much you love it, and they'll see your appreciation and give it back.
Oh, I wanted to ask you before, I just remembered now, when you did your internship, was it a paid internship or are you basically doing it for free?
100% for free.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. And that's how they would be, right? Because you're not generating any revenue for the business you're working in. Because you're learning.
Yeah. And you're annoying as hell. You're making mistakes. And you're potentially making mistakes that could literally cause cross-contamination issues. tattoo apprentices, there's a nickname for them, which is tatter tots.
Like tater tots.
Yeah. And so it is those like annoying kids that you love dearly, and that you're just passing on your guidance to. And once upon a time, people didn't get to tattoo until they were a year in, so they had to learn how the shop ran before they even got to touch a machine. I was pretty lucky that I got thrown on fairly quickly, but I've definitely heard of others who didn't get to touch a machine until way later. But yeah, everything's moving a lot faster now, so I think there is a lot of complexities to how to have or do an apprenticeship.
And that must be kind of a barrier for a lot of people that want to become tattoo artists to get into it, right? Because not that many people have the luxury of not working for a year, because I guess while you're doing this apprentice, you can't really have another job, because
I did.
Okay. Well,
but that's the thing. That's where it's like somewhat ableist, right?
You have to find ways to make it work.
Yeah, and that was one of the like toxic gatekeeping traits. Was we want to see you like bleed for this. So I was doing 40 hours at the tattoo shop, and so that was like 9 to 5 kind of vibes, and then straight from there I would run around to my nighttime job. And so then I'd work 30 to 40 hours a week there.
What? Wow. Oh,
I eventually worked out that it was actually harder having days off. So I just worked 7 days regardless.
Wow.
Because it was working like, there were certain days that I was working 15, 16 hour shifts. And those hurt me more. So I was like, let's do less of those and let's just work continuously and never not work.
So you pretty much had 2 full-time jobs?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And it's not an uncommon story.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, why the older artists are kind of, they come across quite like harsh and like...
Because they've been through all the hard yards.
Yeah, and it was like a whole different kind of kettle of fish back then, and people were doing crazy stuff to do it because of how much they loved it. And so seeing people be able to do it at the drop of a dime can kind of hurt. But at the same time, everyone has to do their life, and we just have to follow our journeys and they have to follow theirs.
Yeah. Well, besides tattoos, you have other activities going on in life as well. And recently you've published a book, which is called Tama the Tui, that you also illustrated. Could you tell us a bit more about the book and your experience with taking it from having an idea to actually printing it?
Yeah, so the writer, Alvante Harris, he's actually one of my really good friends. So he was the one that came up with the idea, and we did social netball together as well. Like we hung out, and then we're doing social netball, and so we were catching up quite a lot. And he came to me one afternoon and said, "Hey Maria, I think I've written a book." Yeah, just real inspired one night. And he just kind of wrote this thing out, and he's like, "Can I read it to you?" And it was actually got me quite emotional. It's really simply written, but it's beautifully like laid out. And so he was like, "Maria, I know you don't really draw for children, but do you think you could illustrate this for me?" And I said it would be an honour. But it was crazy because around that time there was a lot of turmoil actually happening in my life. So I was with a partner who was like addicted to drugs, and I was trying to get out of that. And I eventually did, and it was just pure chaos. And my life was really dark. So at the beginning of the book, Tama is literally standing in a puddle and in the midst of like a thunder and lightning storm and like getting drenched by the rain. And that's one of the really early on pictures, and that's exactly where I started, because I didn't know how else to draw the book apart from my own emotions at that time. So it's really interesting because, you know, Tama does go through a journey, just like I fully did. So it was really cathartic, especially because a lot of my art growing up was quite crude or radical or very like in your face and punk, so it was really interesting learning how to express my feelings in a way that was super child friendly. And made you feel all the feelings that you need to feel to understand the message. But yeah, in a really wholesome childlike capacity. And I'm really glad that I was able to kind of get to that it was really painful. It took about a year because I'd never done a book before. So there was definitely some mishaps on the way, but got there, and I'm really proud of what I've done. And Alvante will actually be starting a foundation called the Tama Tui Foundation to be able to help kind of get the support needed to the places that he's kind of really hoping to get to, which is all revolving around youth mental health. And so if 4 books are purchased, 1 book is donated to like an organisation or school that needs it. And he'll also be working on a book in Te Reo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you think you'll do more illustrating and non-tattoo artwork now that you've had a bit of a chance at it?
I definitely think so, because I've also like done a little bit of merch in my time as well. So I think I would love a future of maybe tattooing 2-3 days a week, and then I get to do other creative lines as well, whether that's illustration or clothing or general just like crazy artwork. I'm super open to collaborations. If anyone wants to collaborate in any kind of way. I've got a lot of friends who are musicians, so I've done things for them like posters or album covers and things like that. So I'd love to be able to dive more into a lot of that sort of stuff just to kind of fuel my creativity.
Yeah. And have you ever done body painting?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I guess it's quite similar to tattooing
Totally.
in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, especially, like the flow of the body and all of that sort of stuff. I've never been like super well paid for body painting, but definitely in just like a fun manner. I've done a lot of body painting.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And is there anything boiling in the pot at the moment? Something that you're working on?
There's definitely some really fun clothing stuff in the works.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess, a form of like upcycling.
Cool.
So yeah, there'll be a lot of denim things coming out in the horizon with myself and 2 others. We also made some really sick safety spoon dispensers.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
It's actually a bucket hat that just has a spoon on it. But like,
do you wear it? And
Yeah,
it has
yeah,
a
we-
dispenser on it?
yeah, it's got a bunch of safety pins and a spoon on it, so it's multi-purpose.
Yeah. Very
Cool.
creative.
Yeah.
So on to a bit more about you as a person. Last year, after a very long journey of misdiagnosis, you were diagnosed with combination ADHD. How has finally receiving a correct diagnosis impacted you, and was it a relief that helped you understand some parts of your personality?
100%. So, like for extra clarification, my original diagnosis. So I was in the mental health system from the age of 14. In the youth service, they try to avoid really harsh diagnoses. So it was mostly depression, panic disorder, and then by the time I was put into the adult system, I was given the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. What's been really interesting is as more women are getting diagnosed, I'm hearing this story over and over and over again. One of the girls I know actually said, borderline personality disorder is the diagnosis you get if you're poor, because you're in the public system.
Yeah.
When you've got money, that's when you
Yes.
get the ADHD diagnosis.
Yeah.
Just one of those fun little systemic
Yeah.
push downs
Yeah.
of a class.
Before you came into the studio, I was talking to Laura about it because a couple of my friends think they have ADHD and they're my age, in their 30s, but the cost has been, I guess, the barrier. They can afford it, but at the same time, they're like, I don't want to spend over $1,000 just to find out what I'm 90% certain
Right.
I already have. And the waiting list is really long in New Zealand, apparently. So even if you do have the money, you might be waiting over a year before you even see a psychiatrist. And the tests that you have to go through are not really tests that make you feel good either.
Well, I guess it's more, if you're ADHD, paperwork's probably not your friend. So being sent out a bunch of different papers to fill out and then scan back through and then file back and make sure that all the right people have the right bits. That's what makes it take even longer, for sure, which makes things harder. A Zoom call for an hour costing like $1,200, insane.
Wow. Yeah. So is it something that can't really be diagnosed through the public health system?
Not really. It sucks. And because, especially considering I am someone who used the public health system from the age of, it would have been like 24 to, I was on and off in the adult system. I think I was like finally discharged at maybe like 25, and I'm 32 now. So I thought that because of my access within the system, they have all my paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
How can the psychologist that can label me as a borderline can't label me as ADHD? I honestly don't understand how that works.
Yeah, because surely they're trained in all of these things when they do their education. Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I think there might be like the odd case where it's really obvious, but like my older brother has ADHD. He was in the public system like myself, but he was given the ADHD diagnosis.
Probably because he's a boy.
100%.
Yeah.
He was he was throwing shit. He was being loud.
It's easier to diagnose than females.
Change it.
Do you feel that on the other side that having ADHD has an impact on your creativity?
100%. Yeah. It means that I can like focus for long periods of time, even though people think that we have a problem with focusing. We just have a problem at focusing on like the things we're sometimes meant to be focusing on. You give us something that we love, we can go for hours. We can forget to pee and eat. And because of our passions, we go so hard on those passions, and so we get really good at things really quickly. So you give us a new genre of tattoo art and we're like, cool, I got you in 2 weeks, we can do that this big, let's go. As well as then you've got empathy as well, right? You've got the higher levels of empathy, so you can understand your client's pain if you choose to like unlock those parts of you a lot more so.
A few of my friends that have got ADHD, they say the same thing, right? One of my friends puts it in a way where she's like, she just can't focus on the boring stuff in life, but she focuses on the stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is.
You know, for watching YouTube videos, fun tip, you know how you can change the speed on a YouTube video? So turns out if you've got ADHD, if you change the speed to anywhere from 1.25 or faster, you can actually keep up with it.
Oh.
Because what we're getting bored of is how slow they're often talking. If they speak faster, we can follow it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you can do life and fast forward.
High speed.
That's probably also why you can do so many things.
Yeah, it's a problem though. I'm like, yes, let's put it all on the shoulders.
And then you don't need sleep either.
Of course not.
So there's also something else interesting about your upbringing, where you were brought up in the Catholic Church, I think it was.
Amen.
And you also got baptised when you were a teenager, but then you decided to leave the church. Can you tell us a bit about what led you to leaving it?
Totally. So I've actually been baptised twice. I was baptised into the Catholic Church as a baby, courtesy of my mum. So I was brought up in a Catholic household. She actually eventually became a Sunday school teacher. So I definitely know a bunch of my prayers. And then at 13, that's when I joined a Rise church, which is an evangelical church. Which I think has pretty much been outed as a cult now.
Yes.
So I was baptized as a teenager, I think at maybe about 15, in that church. And they definitely groomed me hard. Because it's crazy how quickly they get you to like work for the church and do all sorts of things for them and be spending like 3, 4, 5 times a week with them, so that they really have you in their clutches. The thing that probably drove me out of that combination of things, I thought that I had been miraculously cured by God. So there was like a healing ceremony, and I thought that my mental illness had been cleaned by God. So I stopped taking my meds. It was a really bad idea. And I remember trying to talk to my elders and be like, why did this? Because like, you know, my body went through that whole weird, crazy relapse and withdrawal, and it was a horrible time. And so I went to my leaders and asked them, why is this happening? And they either couldn't give me an explanation, or they said, you just need to pray harder and you're being tested. And so then eventually some hot older emo boy asked for my number at like in town once. And I remember telling one of my leaders, about it, and they asked if he was Christian, and I said I don't know, and they said, well, if he's not Christian, you can't talk to him.
Oh my God.
So what did I do? I talked to him. And then I eventually decided I actually like, flirting with boys more than Jesus. And so I kind of started to drift myself away from the church. It was really hard because they do kind of hound you through your emails and phone to keep coming to different services. And I felt so guilty, and I honestly thought I was going to hell for a period. But that's when I guess I just had to go on my own little kind of spiritual journey to work out where I fit on like the religious spectrum. So we definitely went full atheist at one point, but then we made it back to some sort of weird witchy spiritual vibe that, you know, makes me happy and doesn't hurt anybody.
So when you left the church, did your family or people in the church and friends you'd made in the church cut contact with you?
So it was really interesting. So my mum was still Catholic when I joined Arise. And she actually knew that Arise wasn't a good, she kind of knew that it was culty, but she also knew that if she pressed me too hard, that she might lose me, I guess. So she actually came to my baptism at that church, which was quite weird for her because she didn't, you know, she never came to any of my sports games or nothing, but she came to that. So I'd say, like, I got chased just, through phone and email. I never really got fully, like, kind of cut off, but I also never really tried to go back, if that kind of makes sense. Like, I don't think I formed strong enough relationships there that really kind of upset me that I lost. I think, you know, I was really upset losing what I thought was my relationship with God at the time. But I've always been really blessed with friends and family, so I'm kind of, that sort of thing wasn't too bad. But you do kind of meet others that were there at the same time as you, and you do kind of hug them, and you do say things like, you got out, and those are really special moments.
Yeah. And is it possible that also the people that you had contact with while you were in the cult, the strongest bond between you and those people was the cult? So then when you left, there was no more that strong bond that kept you close to them?
I would say so. And it was really interesting because a lot of them, if they were like couples, because they kind of made sure that people married within the church as well. So some of them, once they got married and started having kids, that's when they kind of realised, we don't want our kids in this. So they would often just move to different churches. So they'd be just moved to more wholesome, community-based, kind of like Anglican churches or something that weren't so intense. Whereas I obviously wasn't going down the church route.
I just want to step back to your many interests because there is one that really stood out to me. You used to do drag car racing. Is that correct? What got you interested in it, and do you still do it?
No. So, like I said earlier, I love being the boys at what they can do. So I definitely got into cars when I started driving, and I definitely loved driving fast. It definitely makes sense knowing now that I have ADHD, so that kind of fits. And I'm quite good with my hands, so working kind of with cars kind of came a bit like more naturally to me. And so I remember when I bought like my first kind of fast car, and I was just working at McDonald's, and one of the boys couldn't drive at the time. I think he lost his license, and he actually offered to pay me a full tank of petrol to drive him at the drags. And so I said yes, because I also am really open to new experiences. And I actually really enjoyed it. Not all the guys, some of them were dumb, but I quite enjoyed like finding those sweet little like pockets of people that are really lovely and genuine, and just being able to talk about passions together. I've only ever like properly raced once, but I did win.
That's cool.
I left the drags because a drunk driver actually smashed into the back of my car through a set of lights. And so that took out the back of my car. So that kind of got me feeling a bit down in the dumps about it. But yeah, I was the only female driver in the Wellington City drag scene at that period of time in 2013.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And did that guy ever pay for the damages?
No. He was apparently someone's cousin who was like borrowing someone's car and was
so you
just
couldn't
down in
track down
Wellington
who he
for the
was.
weekend.
Oh no.
The guys who run the drags at that point, they were really nice. They actually came back for me. And so they actually had a really good yarn. They tried to fix my car so I could at least drive it to wherever I needed to go. And they actually supported me in going to the police. They just said, don't say you're with us. They were like, that guy shouldn't have been drinking, because they were trying to promote a more positive way to hang out with cars. But in those sort of like younger scenes, right, there's always dumbasses.
Yeah. And that's what gives drag racing that bad reputation.
Yeah, there's
right?
so many dumbasses.
Yeah, I know, because like if you're doing it in a safe way, and in a place where, you know, like somewhere where only people doing drag are there, and you're not disturbing, you know, everyday people, then there's actually nothing wrong with it. But if you've got drink drivers, or if you're trying to do drag down like a main highway, you're going to piss everyone else off.
Exactly. It's the same with like graffiti, right? Graffiti's really cool, but then when you're doing it on like someone's private property that like they're still trying to pay off their mortgage for, that's a really dumb move to make. That's just real shit.
Yeah, they have the same problem in Melbourne. I used to live in Melbourne, and my husband doesn't do drag racing, but sometimes him and his friends would like go and watch. You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
you know, a lot of guys like to just go and watch.
Yeah,
whereas I'm like, I find that really boring, but
they stand around so much. There's actually fuck all driving that happens. It's so dumb. They literally just sit around. Yeah,
in their little groups.
Yeah, they just look at each other and talk about how cool each other are or how dumb the other one is.
I went with him once. It's like, the whole time I was like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Cool, okay. And he was like, we have to be really careful because the cops might come. And I was like, what? Because they were doing it in this part of Melbourne that they weren't meant to be doing it because it was kind of a residential area.
Yeah.
I was like, just go to an isolated place then.
Totally right.
Solved.
So funny though. Yeah.
It's like some people really love it and then other people just hate it. There's like no in between.
Completely. It's definitely I can understand why though on the both ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there more women in the scene now though? Do you know since you're kind of out of the scene?
I think a touch, but from what I've heard, not heaps. At least not in New Zealand. I'd say from what I'm seeing online, there's some really cool chicks out there that are like pushing the car scene, which is awesome. Because I just want to see women dominate in so many areas. Like that's how you'll see equality. Is that when you have 50-50 splits everywhere, we want to see 50% men as nurses, 50% women as like real scucks as race car drivers making the same amount of money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the end of it. Thank you
Cool.
so much for being with us.